Improving on an already successful formula is one of the toughest jobs in naval architecture, and that's exactly what Fairline's designers faced when they introduced this, the brand new Fairline Targa 47 GT. It replaces the 45 GT. In this video, I'm going to show you what the differences are, but more importantly, answer this question. Is it enough to improve on an albeit very successful formula, or do buyers expect more innovation, more headline-grabbing party tricks, or is it enough just to fettle a well-rounded package? Well, I'm going to try and answer that by giving you a full sea trial, touring the decks, interior and machinery spaces, and at the end of this video, I'm going to put it to the berth as well to see what it's like to handle at slow speed. I'm Jack Haynes, you're watching YachtBuyer. If you're new to the channel, welcome along, make sure you subscribe, and if you're not new and you watch a lot, you make sure you subscribe as well, please. It really helps us out, and it means you won't miss sea trials like the one you're about to watch. Now let's start down here, because this platform is one of the changes over the 45 GT. It's slightly longer. It's still not enormous, not really designed to carry toys, but it is a lovely addition back here because, well, you can do what I'm doing now. I talk about this a lot during tours. You can drop this down so it's just beneath the surface, sit at the back of the boat with a nice cold beer and have your feet in the water. It's really, really nice. But this does drop a bit further down if you want it to help you in and out the water. If you want to launch a paddleboard, that sort of thing, very easy to do it off this platform. And there are some nice details too, like having the Targa logo here. How subtly they've integrated the grates to help the water come through when it's dropping down into the water. There's a nice handhold here as well, because there's a ladder, a boarding ladder, which obviously you're going to need when the platform is up against the back of the boat. And talking about the back of the boat, another clever bit of design is how well connected this is even when it's down. There's a step built in here so I can step up, then I'm onto the back of the boat, and even with the platform down, I can go across to the other side without having to drop down onto the platform. That works really nicely. Now, one thing to point out, we have got a tender garage, but the platform has to be down for that to open. So make sure you use it for storage, for fenders, that sort of thing, before you get going, because you need to drop the platform down, put that up, put everything in, and then close it down again. But it's big enough for sort of 3-meter Williams, plenty of space in there for a decent tender and some toys besides. Other functionality here, there's a deck shower just behind me. You can have a nice wash off. And then, of course, the benefit of having a tender garage is what you get on top of it, which is lovely big sun pad. 2-3 adults would be pretty comfortable on there. You can get some shade as well that extends out if you want to, but you can see we've got a good mix at the moment. Nice shady cockpit, sunbathing space back here. And talking of the cockpit, let's have a closer look. Now, like the Targa 45, you can have this as a GT, which is what this one is, or you can have the open, and the open is, well, much more open, no doors, much bigger cockpit. This one splits this main deck between a covered interior that we're going to see in a moment, and then this slightly smaller but still pretty nice cockpit area. So what have you got in this version? Well, when you first come up here, this is where they've managed to fit a grill. I think that's really neat how they've put that in there, that nice curved moulding, but you've still got a decent sized Kenyan grill that connects to a sink, makes it so much easier to clean. We can just wipe everything off the grill and down into a sink. Underneath that, it's not a fridge because there's a fridge just inside, but it is a bin. Always useful to have a bin on deck so you're not tying a plastic bag to something and putting all your rubbish in there. Now over here, this is where we have the two-way backrest that I mentioned, because you need to move this in order to use the tender garage, but it has a double function, because when you do that, it also creates this really nice headrest for when you're sunbathing. Then you flip these up, and that's how you bring up the tender garage. But it means you can easily flip between full sunbathing, then when you want to dine, pop this up, clips into place, and then you can sit down here. And they've really extended this seating area to maximize the seating space out here. That said, of course, the table isn't quite big enough to extend all the way to here, but arguably you could pop another table here if you wanted to. But day to day, considering this particular boat's got 4 berths on board, this table is just about big enough to serve a lunch out here. But most importantly, you've got really good seating and it's in the shade. It's really well protected too, because we have the wheelhouse in front of us. So the breeze is pouring over the bow. I can't feel it at all here. It's a really nice area. Now, before we head inside and look at that interior, let's go check out the bow. Now the port side deck is cut off from the cockpit by the seating, so from the cockpit it's much easier to come to the starboard side. However, access from the bathing platform up both sides is pretty good, but it's much easier to come up this side and make your way forward from the cockpit. And you know, it's pretty good along here. You've got this rail which isn't massively high, but you have got this here to help guide you forward. And what you can see from here is just how big this roof is. Obviously it's solid. Glazing is now standard. That wasn't the case on the 45 GT. So even when it's closed, as we'll see when we step inside, you still got loads of natural light coming through. It makes it even more functional, that even in not great weather when it's closed, you've still got plenty of natural light. But there are elements where you can see that this design is based on an existing older model, and the foredeck is probably one of those areas. In the modern day, this just lacks a bit of innovation. It's a sunbathing space. That's it really. There's nothing else going on here. We're in a world where you're seeing sunken wells and tables and sofas on boats like this, and this really is just quite a simple arrangement. Great for sunbathing, not much good for anything else. Of course, there's the practical stuff. You've got your nice cleats up here, fair leads, and a really good anchor locker. Nice and deep, plenty of space for chain and a couple of fenders. But yeah, up here, it feels a little bit behind the pack. Let's head inside and see if it's any better. It's not hard to see why this version, the GT, proved so popular and the 45, and I think it'll be the same with the 47 because it just offers so much flexibility, completely dependent on the weather. So you can fully enclose this area and go out winter boating if you want, but then in the summer on a day like this, you can open everything up really easily. For example, back here, that door slides across and then you can ping that window open and suddenly there's a really nice breeze running through. When you connect that to the big sunroof, drop down windows on both sides, you can really get a nice amount of ventilation running through this area. But equally, if the weather turns like that, you can turn it back again. And how about the space itself? Well, of course, the seating areas aren't as big as the open because they've split it between indoor and outdoor, but you still get a really nice dinette here and lovely, comfortable, squishy seats. And what I like is the way they've designed this is even if someone is forced to sit inside, they can still sit up here and be connected to the conversation out there. But equally, because of the size of this space and how comfortable these seats are, if you do actually have to dine inside, you've got the space and the comfort to be able to do it. So I can pop these open, and this is where we see some of the Fairline quality. Even this pull-out stainless steel support is beautifully done, and the woodwork, well, we know Fairline prides itself in its woodwork, and it's no different on this boat. It looks absolutely glorious, and you can see it's all nicely grain matched, high gloss, a bit too nice to use maybe. You might want to invest in a nice tablecloth, but it's certainly a really beautiful piece of furniture and a reasonable size once it's open if you want to dine in here. Most of the time I suspect you will close it up and it drops up and down as well at a touch of a button, and probably lean back and use it as a place to sit and watch the TV, because the TV pops up from behind that counter over there. Now of course there is a full galley downstairs which we'll get to in a moment, so this area here doesn't need to provide cooking facilities, but it does add extra storage, which is always handy, and maybe more importantly, there's an extra fridge here. Nice and close to the cockpit, so guests can grab drinks without going downstairs, and boost your overall cooling space because downstairs there isn't room for a full height fridge freezer. In here, just a bit of extra storage space as well, but it's all very useful. Nice to have this area here where you can line up your ornaments. Though I would say, see, they've got a fiddled edge on the wooden bit, but one here wouldn't be a bad idea so things don't slide off. A stabilizer is an option on this model, but this particular boat doesn't have it fitted, so you can roll around a little bit when you're on anchor. But let's talk about the roof, because of course it's in here where you really feel the benefit. Wide open now, sunshine pouring in, but if the rain does arrive in a matter of seconds, and it is seconds because this is nice and quick, unlike the tender garage which is a bit slow, but this closes up, and not only have you got a roof, but you've got a solid roof. It's not a piece of canvas. It feels like if you do get caught out in big waves and maybe the rain comes, you're going to have better protection. But despite that, because of the glass now being standard, you've still got loads of natural light pouring into here. And yes, it does get quite warm because there's a lot of glass around here, but even with that closed, you have got these side windows that drop down, so you do get a bit of cross breeze, which is nice. Of course, air conditioning also an option. This particular boat's got it, so it's feeling nice and cool. But yeah, this is just great functionality, and there's a reason that Fairline haven't strayed too far from the 45 GT formula, because this design still works really well. Does it work as well out on the water? We're going to find out in a moment. I'm going to sit behind this Helm station and we're going to take it for a drive, but before we do that, let's go and look at the accommodation. Right, before we have a closer look down here, let's talk layouts, because there are two options down here on the lower deck. One is this one, the 2-cabin, 2-bathroom arrangement with a dinette in the middle. This does convert into a berth, however, or if you want more permanent sleeping space, you can replace this area with a pair of bunks. Now what I'd say is, unless you have a family big enough that you need all that sleeping space, I would definitely go for this, because it just makes this area so much more pleasant. You're not confronted by a bulkhead with a couple of berths in it. If you're not going to use those very often, much better to have this nice space where you can come down, cool off. It's private as well. You might say, well, you've got a seating area up there, why do you need this down here? When you wake up in the morning and you're in a marina especially, you're quite on show up there, so you might not want to be up there in your silk dressing gown. Down here you can wear what you want, or nothing really, and no one will be able to see you. It's cozy. There's a TV down here as well, so maybe the grown-ups will watch the TV up there, the kids will be down here watching this one. And as I said, for occasional guests, this table drops down at the touch of a button. There's infill cushions, and you can make an occasional double berth down here. So for me, I think this is the best layout. The other thing that they've done in upgrading over the 45 GT is take a look at the materials. It feels much more like the Squadron 58 down here. Also the Targa 40, which is part of the same sort of genre, the same era of Fairline. It means you get things like this lovely fluted wood up on the bulkheads. The fit and finish is just slightly elevated, trying to be more like a Squadron. It's really, really nicely done actually, especially with this beautiful gloss woodwork that we've seen some of upstairs. Now opposite whatever you do, whether you have the cabin or not, you're going to have the galley. It's not enormous, and as I said, you've only got under counter fridge, a little freezer section as well. So for long periods on board, a couple of weeks, that fridge is going to be working quite hard. However, storage is excellent because you've got all this stuff here, including places where you can have, you know, your bespoke Fairline crockery, which is all very nicely held in place, so it's not going to move around anywhere. Pots and pans and things down there, but in the floor, I mean, that's just a really useful space, all lined out, great for storing your booze. There's another one there as well. So storage for dry goods is really good. Cooling space left wanting a little bit. You can cook down here if you want to. You've got a 2-burner induction hob, and there's some nice detailing. I've mentioned the fluting, but you open these up, they auto illuminate. You've got all your stemware in there, held in place, not going to go anywhere. And it makes it a bit of an occasion when the champagne's ready to be opened. Open up the flutes, they all light up. It's time to have a nice drink of champagne. Now let's have a closer look at the actual layout of this boat, the cabin, starting forward with the VIP. Now in this cabin we see another change over the 45, and it's this wall of mirrors, which obviously is nice when you're getting ready, but it's also quite a clever way of making this space feel bigger than it is. It bounces a lot of light around here. When you first walk in through the reflection, you feel like you're getting much more cabin than you are, but it's still a really clever cabin because, well, it's quite simple really. These are scissor action berths, which means within a couple of seconds, and it's totally manual, you can go from a pair of twins where you can stand in the middle just about, to a double. Quick as that. I know it's nice to push a button and have things move and whir, but it's also nice when they're simple and things don't go wrong, and it's just really quick to go, right, the kids are in here, they're going to kill each other if it's a double, so I'm just going to do that. And now they've got to go a little bit further when they want to whack each other. But what I like is that they think about what it's going to be like when the bed's apart, because you've got this tray in the middle which is ridged so your stuff's not going to slide around, and then you also have bedside tables when they're together. Simple, effective, really nicely done. What else have we got in here? Well, they've raised the deck head a little bit, so headroom is really good. As I said, even when I step up here at 6 foot tall, I can just about stand between the beds, and then when I drop down, perfectly comfortable, enough space here to get changed. And what's nice, even if you're a couple and you want the boat to be together, you can slide them apart when you're changing. It means you can just move around a bit more easily. There is storage dotted around at eye level as well, and nice that they've sort of included this cool lighting detail. You know, we know that Fairline, from a company perspective, have been through a few changes recently. It's really nice to see on these latest boats that the quality still looks to be right up there. And it's little details like having the fluting that we saw in the saloon is still in evidence there. Around the TV as well, it does still feel a really high quality product. TV on the wall, as I just said. And then this cabin has got direct access to the day head. There's also a door from there into the saloon, so that's going to be the toilet that guests use during the day. But nice that these guests have also got direct access to the bathroom from in here. Right, let's head amidships, have a look at the owner's cabin. Right, amidships to the owner's cabin. On the way in, you have a really nice size ensuite, so totally private bathroom with a separate shower, all the usual stuff for the owner to enjoy. And then you are down a couple of steps, but that's a good thing because it means that headroom down here is really pretty good. Certainly this end of the cabin, I can move down here okay, but the other end, if you're 6 foot tall, you are going to be stooping. So if you're that tall, I suggest you sleep on this side. It's also quite handy because you're close to the bathroom as well, which, as men of a certain age know, that's quite important in the middle of the night. Over here is also where you find your storage. That's obviously quite shallow drawer storage, but then here you've got, well, these are the cushions to make the saloon into a berth. When they're not there, you do have a nice amount of hanging storage, and it's the little things like, you know, the lighting underneath the rail so it lights up when you open it. There's a mirror inset as well. The woodwork, we get to really enjoy the woodwork down here. This paneling is just glorious. And again, the fluting, that's right, I like saying the word fluting, but there's more of it here and over on that side, and it's just detailed. It's interesting. It's a really nice space to be in, and have changed some of the decor, like the grey, the felt they've used around here with the inset lights next to the bed and your sockets down there. It's all very thoughtfully done. And yes, there's plenty of space because obviously the bed isn't maybe in the usual arrangement. We expect the bed to be here, runs across the boat, but I'll tell you why I like that. A, you get some space over here, more storage, space to change, but also you're actually looking through the whole windows. And surely that's the whole point. You're lying in bed, you're at water level, and look at this lovely anchorage here in Allen Bay. You can see the sea from your bed, which is very nice indeed. It's also lovely and cool in here. Air conditioning vents are doing their thing, but within these big windows, which are now one big piece, different to the 45 GT, you'll see that most on the outside, but you get the glass, you also get the opening section as well. So if you do want natural air in here, you can do it. Really nice, very, very good, effective layout. And I do think the 2-cabin one offers a couple incredibly luxurious sleeping space, and the guests do pretty well too. But let me know in the comments below, would you go 2-cabin or 3-cabin? Right, that's enough chat about cabins. Let's go and drive the thing. Right, the engines are running, the roof is open, the cap is on. It's nearly time to go, but just a couple of things before we get going, which is to sort out the driving position. Something I noticed when we brought the boat over here for the shoot was I found it much more comfortable at my height, if I wanted to sit, was to drop down this step. So that just flips down, and then you can slide both seats, this one right forward, and then I'm in a really good position whereby I can sit upright with my back supported, but the wheel, the throttles fall nice and easily to hand. She's in single lever mode, so let's open her up and see what she can do. It's a single engine option, Volvo Penta IPS 650, 480 horsepower per side. Slightly more horsepower than the 45 GT, but it is a bigger, heavier boat, so I don't expect performance to be all that different. Just really open the taps now, get over the hump, through to 16 knots. We have got hump-free interceptors on board, so those are blades on the transom that are dipping in and out the water to maintain the most efficient running attitude. They're on automatic, so the trim blades are just working away to try and maintain the optimum trim level. So really, from the helmsman's point of view, I just have to worry about my speed, which is now 25 knots, which is what I'd expect the cruising speed to be in nice conditions like this. It's really not very taxing today. There's a little bit of chop around here off the needles, but nothing particularly scary. And 25 knots feels like a really nice cruising speed for this boat. It settles into it very nicely indeed. Now you will want to add a little bit of trim tab, because I think that in extending the hull, when you haven't got the tabs deployed, it does drag through the water a little bit. So we're getting a little bit of spray being dragged in through vortex earlier on, which is quite uncomfortable for people in the cockpit, of course. Put some tab down, put some blade down, get that bow down, lift the stern up a little bit, and it's absolutely fine. So I'm on about 50% blade here, 25 knots, and this really feels like the kind of performance you're going to be doing all day, really. The boat feels very happy here indeed. In terms of the numbers, well, that's giving us a fuel rate across both engines of about 150 litres per hour, and that equates to around 6 litres per nautical mile. Really, pretty much par for the course in this sector. The only different rival in terms of performance is probably something like the Riviera a 465 SUV, bigger fuel tank, designed for further offshore cruising. That's probably got maybe a 300, possibly 400 nautical mile range. This will be more like 250, 300, I would imagine. And if you do want to compare this boat to its rivals, because it's got a few of them, remember you can do that on YachtBuyer.com. Head over there, you can use our head-to-head tool, look at the boat side by side, look at the photos, the tech specs, the layouts, everything, and see which one you like best. Anyway, back to this one. Handling. Well, it's IPS, so everything is lovely and light. It's really not very hard work to move this boat from side to side. Sometimes Fairline's modern steering arrangements can feel a little bit too light, but this isn't. This isn't overly sort of artificially assisted. There's a nice amount of feel there, but it's still no effort at all to swing it from side to side to side. And importantly, when you do dial in some lock, it heaves around really nicely. Now, I understand it's not really of much use on a day like today. You're not going to be doing water sports out the back of this, but when the waves are around, especially in a following sea, being able to maneuver quickly and smoothly through the nicest path, you're really going to enjoy that. And it's a sports cruiser, it's supposed to be nice to drive. Let's see what we can get to in terms of top speed. So, wide open throttle. Sound levels are still really contained. We've got the back open, we've got the roof open, but I'm not having to raise my voice. We're just getting to 30 knots here. There is a bit of tide around. I would expect around 32 knots. That's what Fairline quote. That's what the 35 GT did. And we are now just knocking on the door of 31. We've got a lot of fuel on board as well, 75% fuel. So let's say 32 knot top speed, 25 knot cruise. That's where you're going to be with this. And that feels nice. But we're chewing through the fuel now, 200 litres an hour, 6.5 litres per nautical mile. So we'll drop her back a touch and talk a little bit about the driving environment now we're up to speed. Now, in a minute, we're going to talk about the joystick a lot more because I'm going to be putting it into a berth in an Ocean Village. At speed, the benefits of IPS, well, we've talked about the light handling. You can, of course, control the boat with the joystick at speed now, but really, even on something that's planing and in 25 knots, you're just going to sit and let the hull do the work, really. It sits nice and steady. That was always the thing about shafts drive for IPS. Shafts feel planted in the water. That's a nice journalist phrase that we often use, but this sits really nicely at this speed. I'm not having to touch the wheel at all. So you've got light steering, but it doesn't lead to it being sort of ponderous on a straight line. I am quite central, of course, so the navigator sits here, so they have to sort of move me out of the way to get out, but it does mean that I'm in the middle of the boat, which is good because it improves the all-round view. The mullions are quite thick. In fact, the general all-round view isn't great when you're seated. When you chuck in a hard turn, I can't really see through this rear three-quarter view, and this is so low on both sides that you really have to peer around. In fact, what you end up doing with the step down is standing up to check everything's clear, which is fine. It's no biggie to have to stand up. If it's raining and the roof's closed, it's a slightly different matter. So yeah, all round view not great, fine forward, nice single piece windscreen though it's quite shallow. But I do like the fact that when I'm sitting back, my view is very clear. If I stand, that's lovely. Can really catch the breeze very nicely. The dash arrangement is nice. There's quite a lot of shiny plastic. The MFD is a bit far away, but they've put the control for it right here next to the throttle, so I can sit comfortably in my seat and flick through the functions on the MFD, zoom the chart in and out, change screen. All of that can be done either with this or with the swipe of a finger. But when you're moving along in rough weather, having that control is really handy. Likewise, having these big buttons down here. I don't want everything in the screens. I want to be able to push some buttons now and then. And the stuff that you need in emergencies and the stuff you're going to be using regularly is all down here in a little panel. I like that very much. There isn't much space to put odds and ends. There are cup holders down here at kind of shin level. There's a little flap up section here where you've got things like the ignition, you've got your chain counter, but there isn't really anywhere to take a device and just sling it where it's not going to slide around. So that feels like a little bit of an oversight over on this side. But this really demonstrates exactly the sort of cruising this boat's designed for. Perfect weather, the roof's open, the back's open, I'm nice and cool, but I'm not getting absolutely buffeted by the wind. If I stick my head above, you know, it's pretty windy. But when I come down, although I'm getting that breeze and it's nice and cool, I'm not getting battered in the face, and that's what's tiring. You know, GT, it's a Grand Tourer, exactly what this is designed for, and it's lovely in this, guys. What's also quite good is I've got my navigator here, but the dinette extends far enough forward that people can sit next to you while you're going along, albeit they're facing the other way, but it does mean that another couple of people can sit there and chat with the person driving, not just the person here in the navigator's seat. But this, of course, is an owner-run boat. There is no crew cabin. It's the type of boat that someone will buy and run themselves. And probably much more important to you guys, people considering this, isn't really what it's like to drive out here, because this bit is easy. It's inside the marina. Let's see what she's like when you need to come into a berth, and of course that's where we can talk about the IPS joystick. I discussed the spray issue with Fairline after the shoot, and the team put it down to incorrect deployment mapping for the Humphrey interceptors, which, according to them, negatively affected the trim angle at certain speeds, something they assured me they could investigate and rectify. Let's hope it is an easy fix, because it was a blemish on what is generally a very enjoyable driving experience. Right, we're approaching the berth now. A good test for IPS, and really what it's designed for, because we're going to go side on, slot in between two boats. A berth that's only slightly bigger than the boat itself, but you know, it's a very good way for me to demonstrate how IPS can help out in situations like this. As well as IPS, I've got a proportional Sleipner bow thruster as well that is totally independent from the joystick. So the joystick, as I'm using it, is only using the pods, and then I've got independent control of the bow using the bow thruster, which is control that I quite like to have, because sometimes you do just want to give the bow a bit of a nudge without having to interfere with the stern and the pods. So we can now just come to a bit of a standstill, and I'll just twist the joystick, and then we twist to starboard. Obviously I've got the sunroof open, great if I do want to stand up and poke my head out, but also it means communication's really good with crew. If the guys are walking around the deck, and I can hear them easily, I can see them really easily, and we can communicate with each other through the roof. There is no side door, of course, but I don't feel too alienated from the deck spaces, and I've elected to sit down because we're going port side too, so even though I stood up I couldn't really see the side of the boat, so I'll just stay seated. And now it's a case of lining her up. The wind is also helping me a little bit, and coming in sideways. And the nice thing about the joystick is that to move sideways with traditional shafts or traditional throttles, you got to split the sticks, you're juggling the bow thruster. Here I just use one control, and hopefully you should be able to gently bring the boat alongside. All round view is actually good for this. I know I complained a bit about it out at sea when we were up on the plane, but here I can see around really nicely, and I have got a camera looking out down over the bathing platform, so I can spot the stern. She goes in quite nice and evenly. The stern doesn't get too far ahead of the bow. See, the stern is where all the power is, but the bow is lighter, so the wind will catch the bow more. And of course the IPS is proportional as well, so you can be really quite gentle with your inputs. And we should be nearly alongside. Got a measure thrust just to keep the bow off. But that's exactly why I like having the bow thruster. I didn't want the momentum of IPS then, just to keep the bow of the pontoon, so a little flick of thruster keeps it off, not too much commotion. Yeah, she handles really nicely at slow speeds. Granted, it wasn't a particularly breezy day, slightly challenging berth, but all in all, very nice, easy boat to handle in the marina. Right, so that's how she drives. The last thing we need to show you is inside the engine room. So let's go there. Right, engine room access then is here on the port side. Now, access down here is actually pretty good. That hatch opens nice and wide, and there's a ladder, and then at the bottom of the ladder you can stand up pretty comfortably. But then we knock into one of the issues with having a tender garage on a boat of this size is, of course, the moulding takes up a lot of space, especially over the engines. It's really quite difficult to squeeze around to the starboard side engine. Port side, not too bad, and actually getting to the pod itself is pretty easy, but getting around to the starboard side really will be quite tricky. Luckily, the generator is right here, so that's pretty easy to inspect, and actually poking around in the dark corners down here, the quality is just as good in these spaces as it is inside. So no issues in terms of fit and finish, just a bit of a tight squeeze. Thanks to the Tender Garage. Before we wrap up, what does the 47 GT cost? Well, you can have a base boat for less than £1 million ex VAT, but the boat you see here, which has a pretty typical spec with things like the high-low bathing platform, bow thruster, air conditioning and the premium pack, came in at just over £1.2 million excluding VAT. As ever, if you want more detail on pricing, head to my in-depth written review via the link in the pinned comment. Right, back to me for some final thoughts. There's no hiding the fact that this is a pretty light refresh of the boat that it's based on, and you can argue that it just feels a little bit behind the curve in certain places. Up here, the lack of sort of functionality in the cockpit, especially compared to some of its rivals, and boats like Riviera and Genoa and Galley just do a little bit more in this sector. However, it doesn't change the fact that this is still a really good all-rounder. It's well made, the cabin spaces are really good. There's variation in terms of the layout on the lower deck. It performs well, it's a good seaboat, and well, it looks really good too. And that is a key factor when it comes to buying something like a sports cruiser. So yes, it's a light refresh, but there is still plenty to like about this package. Let me know what you think of it in the comments below and which of its rivals you'd go for if it wasn't this one. I'd be interested to know. Thanks very much for watching that review. I hope you enjoyed it. Please give it a like if you did. And remember to subscribe if you've not done so already. We actually tested this boat's predecessor with 2 other Fairlines in a Prop Gear episode with James Bark and Nick Vernon from Aquaholic. Go and watch that if you've not done so already. I'll put that up there. Thanks again for watching. I'm Jack Haynes. This is YachtBuyer.